cloud. Very nice. Well, again, welcome everybody. My name is Scott Brown. I'm the Program Quality Director for District 11. We welcome you to VPM training, the second go around for club officers this year. By show of hands, how many of you are brand new VPMs that you took over at the turn of the year? Mary Jo? Wrote? Okay, couple, Paul, very nice. So a couple folks out there that took over the beginning of the year. This is a training that is designed specifically for you. For everybody else, it's kind of a refresher for everything else that you do as a VPM. We tried to get some different voices this year from whom did all the trainings last year. Last time, Valerie did, I want to say president training, if I remember right, last term. Or, no, you did Sergeant of Arms training maybe last year. This time she's doing VPM training. I'm trying to get different perspectives from everybody. So before we get started tonight, I want to make sure everybody knows how we keep track of attendance for all of these sessions. Before we get started, please take a moment to go to the chat feature, enter your name, your club name, and the role and or roles that you will hold within your club. Put that down in the chat, and we will keep track of that for everybody. So before we get started here, I do have a question for everyone. There's been something that's come up over the last few days. I'm trying to get feedback, and this is a great way since we get 20 some of you together at once, and that never happens anymore. So I have a question for everybody. Been some questions about communication. Are you getting too much communication from us, from me particularly? Are you getting too little communication from me particularly? Is there a different method that you would like to get instead of the emails that come from scott@hardyconsulting.com? Is there some other way you would like to be communicated to so you know what is happening, when it is happening, all that sort of stuff? I want to make any adjustments that you all need. So please feel free to unmute. Love to hear from you. Too much, too little, just enough, different form, carrier pigeon preference, I don't know. Whatever it is. I have one thumbs up and I have a lot of folks looking at me like, why are you even asking me this question? Everybody, so thumbs up if you think it's okay. I got head nods, I got some thumbs. Okay, we'll go with that. So no feedback tonight, perfectly fine. We'll keep up what we're doing and until we get a movement that says do something different, we will do the same thing. I guess that works out pretty well. Well, tonight, I have a great pleasure because I get to introduce the one and the only Valerie Rice. Valerie is an attorney, an adjunct professor for Ivy Tech Community College. She's a DTM who has served in many leadership roles, including Area 11 Director. Valerie served in every club officer role, either as an elected or as an interim officer. Presently, she is the immediate past president of TLC Toastmasters of Ivy Tech. Today, Valerie will deliver our officer training for Vice President of Membership. So please put your hands together and give me a hand in welcoming Valerie Rice and her presentation tonight. Got conversions? Got conversions? Help me welcome Valerie Rice.
Thank you, Scott, and welcome to all the VPMs. And those who may not be VPMs, perhaps you will be a successor in interest. Welcome. My question for you tonight is, got conversions? Take one moment, open your chat box and tell me, how many conversions have you had in the past 30 to 45 days? And that's you, even if you are absent the VPM role. How many conversions? For those who are new, a conversion is a person who was a non-Toastmaster at first, and then they became a member. I'd like to see that in the chat box. Just drop your number in there now. We got 3. If it's 0, put it in there. Let's see what you're doing. 2, great, Ken, 2. All right. It looks like we have a diverse group, doesn't it? Let me start first with some assumptions so that everyone is on the same page. The first assumption is this is just a small part of the whole that you'll receive tonight. This is a 1-hour training. It would be impossible for me to give you everything that you need in your VPM role. However, this brings me to my second assumption, and that is know where you can go for your questions. When it comes to your VPM role, there is a tutorial for you online at Toastmasters International. Go to the site afterwards within 48 hours of this training and watch that. You'll gain more information regarding your VPM role. I think that would be very helpful for those who are new, and it'll also be a refresher. My third assumption is, like a fingerprint, clubs are unique. That means what I'm going to share with you tonight, you will have to tweak that so it works for your club. Resist the temptation to have the attitude, I'm not doing that, that's too hard, we don't do it that way. Use this as an opportunity to grow yourself as a leader, and also grow your numbers in your club, because really that's the VPM's role. They deal with membership. The question that I asked earlier, got conversions? That's a question that should always be on your mind as the VPM. I came up with an acronym for you to remember. When someone asks, got conversions? I'd like for you to say rest. The next time when someone says to you, and I'll put it up here on my background, that's the acronym for the way that you may want to look at, how do I convert members for my club? So that's the small piece that I'll give you tonight. And I hope that this will be helpful. If you have questions along the way, drop them in the chat box to me. At the end, I'll save some time and answer some of those. You can send them privately to me so that it's not interfering with the chat box. And oftentimes people can become distracted when they see chat box messages, then they're looking more at the chat than they are listening to the speaker. So if you would, any questions that you have along the way, drop them in the chat box to me. Let's start first with the letter R in rest. R is for a record. It's important that you maintain a record of what you're doing. When you get someone that's interested in Toastmasters, there's a couple of things that you want to remember. Any non-Toastmaster is called a prospect, anyone. As long as they're lucid and over the age of 18, you can be a prospect. Once the prospect shows up at the meeting, that person is a guest. A guest could also be a Toastmaster that's looking for dual membership, or it could be a reinstatement. But nonetheless, when the person shows up, they are a guest. Then when they become a member, that's the conversion. And the question that I asked earlier, got conversions? Some of you have. Some of you I even saw had upwards of 3 or 4, which was great. So some of you may have a system already. How do you record it? Take a moment in the chat box. Think about this. The last time that you filled out an application, it could be for anything, whether it was an application for a credit card, it could have been an application for a job, whether it was manually or online. What was information that was given? Do you recall? Think about that and just put it in the chat box, and that could go to everyone. Do you recall when someone asked for information, what was 2 or 3 things that were asked? Okay, someone sent me their name. Yes, the name is always important. One thing that you want to keep track of, and if you went through that visualization, what did you actually provide? Name. Some people ask for your email, a phone number, and for Toastmasters, you always want to record sponsorship. The question is, where do you record it? It's best if you record it somewhere where everyone will have access to it. At minimum, I encourage you, as you look for your prospects, design a way to record the name, the email address. It could be a phone number if you like, but an email address, especially with what we're going through now, is probably a good idea, and a place for sponsorship. You might be wondering, well, where is a good idea? This leads us to the letter R. R stands for electronic options. When you need a record of something, Google is a good place to go. Once you share that Google link with someone, they can have access to go in and input information. In my opinion, VPM is more than a one-person commitment. Everyone on your team, meaning your officers, as well as members, should be helping you. If you provide them with an opportunity to input information, you could actually do the follow-up. They may have just brought you the person and may be unfamiliar with how to actually put everything together. As a club, you should be speaking with your members to see if someone could assist you. One way to do that, take a minute in your meeting. Ask the VPE or whoever does your agenda, may I have 1 minute of the agenda time to talk about conversions? And just say, hey guys, I need your help. Could you give me the name and email of anyone that might be interested in Toastmasters? Make sure you have a place to record the information, then you can do the follow-up. The second part of electronic options, you must have an electronic application. Those days are over when we were in the room filling out the application. Some people may be back in person, and of course, we're going to get there sooner rather than later, perhaps. But it would be remiss of us to try to go back to the old days. Get an electronic application and make sure that it's available somewhere so everyone can pull it. That's why it's so important for you to have a website. How many of you actually use Free Toast Host? Put a Y in the chat box if you use it in your club. Put an N in the chat box if you say, no, we don't use Free Toast Host. Okay, we got one person using it. All right. We got a couple of people that are using Free Toast Host right now. All you have to do is create a folder under member downloads. That's what you could do. The way that you create the folder, give it a name, put a colon after the name, and then name the document whatever you want. Every time you want something in that folder, you use the same prefix, whatever you named it, and the colon. That's how information gets into a folder. You could actually create a folder under member downloads for you. It could say applications or VPM, whatever you want to name it, and begin to fold everything into Free Toast Host. So you got your record, you got your Google Doc link in there. Now the other thing that you want under electronic, how are you going to get payment? You have to have a way to systematically bring this money into your club. We used to be able to sit in the meeting and someone would maybe pass us a check or cash. Some clubs do take credit cards, but nowadays with us being remote and with this social distancing, what about PayPal? PayPal is not a vendor that pays me to advertise, but that's an opportunity for you to collect your electronic option when it comes to your conversions. It's really a simple process. You need one person to agree to open the PayPal account. Once that opens, that person doesn't have to be available thereafter. You can send invoices from PayPal. You can put a PayPal pay link. All members can then renew their dues on your website. If you are lacking a website, it's okay. You can still send an invoice to an email. PayPal is an excellent electronic option when it comes to conversions. The other thing that you want to be concerned about is your guest book. Your guest book should be available in your meeting. When someone enters your meeting space, how do you allow them to be recorded? Now, you may think, well, we got the Google Doc. Remember, the Google Doc, if you choose to use that, is for you and your members. When guests come in, there should be a guest book. And it should say something to the effect of, welcome, we're glad you came. Keep it very simple. Name, email, and how did you hear about us? Those are the same important pieces that you would have in your Google Doc, but instead these are guests who should just be given a very succinct amount of information. That's the E in REST. Let's now go to the S. The S in REST is your system. What system are you going to use to drive these individuals into the club to be a guest? There are several options. Most people have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, MySpace, Snapchat. I can go on and on about the options that are available. Here are a couple that are free. One, the district offers, and that's Meetup. Put a yes in the chat box, a Y if yes, an N if no. How many of you know or think that you have a Meetup group for your particular club? All right, when I see no, I want to encourage you. It is a free resource. The district pays for it. All you have to do is go to the Meetup space and input your club information. Just to give you an example of how enriching Meetup can be for your group, right now, just in the past 45 days, I have already converted over 3 people just from Meetup. That's it, just from Meetup. I have a list of 15 people from Meetup that myself and the VPM are working on conversions. 15, that's a lot. What is your commitment to Meetup? Here's my suggestion. Once you open the Meetup group, someone has to run it. They have to. Just opening a group and hope that people will come to your meeting won't be enough. I interact with whoever comes into the Meetup space by saying, hi, my name is Valerie. I'm the leader on this Meetup group. How did you hear about Toastmasters? And it's just that simple. When I get a reply, then that's my door to open. I then ask them, would you be willing to share your number? I'd love to give you a call. It will take only 30 minutes of your time. Most people respond back as yes. That's an opportunity that is free for your club. If you're going to open a Meetup and have someone man the Meetup, whoever mans the Meetup, that person should be the sponsor of those Meetups. And you might be wondering, well, what's the purpose of sponsorship? World Headquarters has set up a system on your application. For those who have reviewed it, for those who are new, there is something on the application. There's a section that says sponsorship. That person actually gets credit for bringing the person in. I remember when I first started in 2014 and a DTM trained me. He said during the training, guys, I know you may not think that this is important, but everyone who comes into your club You want to know how they got there. Because when you have someone that's doing it more than others, meaning bringing conversions, that's the person you want to go to. Ask them, what are you doing and how are you doing it? Help us to replicate what you are doing. Since that time in 2014, I have always held in high esteem that sponsorship should be filled out on every single application. Here's how we do it in my club. Let's say, for instance, we have a member that goes to the Y. She's a regular member and they know her there. If she puts a flyer up at the Y and the person then shows up in our club, she or he is asked, how did you hear about Toastmasters? If the person says, oh, I saw a flyer at the Y, the VPM should already be aware that the flyer was placed up and that person who goes to the Y is the sponsor. Similar to what's happening with Meetup, some of you, do you go to church? Do you have a social group other than Toastmasters? Think about the system that you're going to use to drive them there. Once they are there, you should get credit for that. How do you do that? On the application, you put your name, you put your member number, and then your club number. Then when the VPM inputs this information into World Headquarters, there's a spot for it, sponsorship. Our VPM has been trained that everyone that comes into our club must have a sponsor. If it's just a happenstance that they just came in, then certainly the VPM would get credit. But what I want to stress is the VPM's role is to help with conversion. If you want this to be a full team effort, sponsorship is one way to incentivize people helping you. World Headquarters will give you a pen pal after you have converted so many members. That can be an incentive for someone. Nonetheless, always keep sponsorship in mind. So we got sponsorship, we got source, and under the system, what about the sale? What system do you have to close the sale? You have to ask. You have to ask the person, will you join, and fill in the blank with your club name? Because the issue isn't whether they're going to join Toastmasters. The issue is, are they going to join your club? You want them to join your club. When you reach out to people, make sure that you have a system in place to ask. And it's just that, will you join our club? And if you have questions about that, go ahead and put that in the chat box. Let's go to the T now. The T stands for time frames. How long are you going to allow a person to just remain a prospect? From now into perpetuity? 1 week? 2 days? 1 month? Have you thought about it? You must have a time frame to close the sale. The longer you wait, the longer the person will wait to join, trust me. I have now come to the conclusion that you need about 3 outreach contacts before a person will even make a decision to join a Toastmasters club. One way to think about time frames, and this is actually personal, look at your schedule. Are you available during the week? If not, what about weekends? Set up a time frame that you're going to work on closing the sale. For me, sometimes I just spread it out. I give Toastmasters about 2 hours a week. And you may think, well, how does that look? For you, it may be different. Let's say it's 1 hour. Commit to 1 hour a week. Break it up in 2 days, 30 minutes and 30 minutes. What about 3 days? 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. What about 15 minutes, 4 days a week? Whatever it is, give yourself a time frame to work on closing those sales. And really, this is just follow up. That's really what it's about. How are you going to follow up? And remember, you're going to need at least 2 contacts with the person. Oftentimes, when a person shows up at a meeting and they go away, that's your opportunity. Make sure that you're contacting that person at least within 48 hours. If you get a lead from world headquarters, from the Find a Club, make sure you have a time frame for those. Go back to the S, the system. What source are you using with that system? Give it a time frame. So with that said, let's go to some of the questions in the chat box, because I gave a lot of information, but this system, whenever someone asks, got conversions in your mind, you're thinking rest. And that's what you should always have on mind when someone says anything about conversions, rest. All right, I had one person, let's see if I have some here. Oh, a person said something about their free toast host. There had been some discussion about free toast host, but no one has actually done anything with the free toast host, but that's okay. Let me see. Can you talk more about sponsorship? Sponsorship is actually on the application, and it's just like when you went to purchase something. Some places in this country have stores that actually ask for your zip code. What they are actually doing is trying to target where you are. It's very similar. We're trying to target who we are that's bringing the individuals in. And for sponsorship, all you need to do is put your on the application, you just put in your account, which is our member number, and then your club number. I hope that answers your question about sponsorship.
And Valerie, Christine asked, do you usually call or email potential people?
It's a personal preference. For the meetup group, I only have the option first to email. That's the only option on Meetup, because that's how Meetup is set up. In fact, in the Meetup group, the email is this long string of numbers. So no one can even reach out to each other unless you go through Meetup. That's why after the person joins our group in Meetup, I automatically reach out. Then I ask them for a number, and then I do call. As long as they have given me the number, that's the permission. When it comes to this communication, make sure you have a preferred method of communication in your club. When someone has a preferred method of communication, as it being email, everyone should agree to respond to an email. Having an email just be there unanswered, not only does it show a lack of leadership, honestly, professionals need to answer emails. And I'm not speaking about just emails that come for information only. For instance, there was an announcement about the training this week. I'm not sure about Scott, but I wouldn't want everyone on that list, hundreds of people saying received, received, received. I'm talking about emails regarding membership. Anytime you receive or send an email, there's an assumption there that you expect a reply. Generally, what I do, I just put received and thanks. So that's one aspect, your preferred method of communication in your club. Your preferred method of communication for conversions, it has to be your personal preference. Do you have a phone number? If so, go ahead and try. Make sure you are quick to identify yourself. Here's one way to do it. Hi, my name is Valerie. I'm calling from TLC Toastmasters Ivy Tech. Otherwise, they're going to think that you are a telemarketer and they're going to hang up the phone. Be very quick to identify yourself as a Toastmaster. If you got that number, say from Facebook or Meetup, they already know that they put themselves out there. When you say Toastmasters, they're going to go, oh, okay, yes, yes. Oh, yes, I do have a moment. And that's the second thing that you have to do. Before you get into a discussion, ask, do you have a moment to speak with me? And wait and listen. If they say no, wait. They will then probably tell you, could you call me back at 4 o'clock? Or could you call me Friday? Or something to that effect. So common courtesy would be identify yourself quickly in the call as being a Toastmaster. Once you've done that, ask the second question. Is this a good time to speak with you? And then wait for the reply and act accordingly. Does that answer your question?
Yes, so you mean the preference of the potential member. You try to honor that, whether it's phoning them or emailing them or texting them, if you know their preference. Or do you mean the preference of my own personal preference? I guess maybe there's a blend there.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. It's your personal preference. Make sure you are in control of your conversions. You never want to give control over to a non-Toastmaster because remember, they are unaware of what's even going on. It's your personal preference. If you have a phone number, are you available to call them? If so, go ahead and do so, and then use those strategies that I mentioned. If you're not comfortable with speaking about Toastmasters. And for new people, this may be a comfort issue. One opportunity is the brand manual. Go to the brand manual and learn the 1-minute elevator pitch for Toastmasters. That will help you tremendously when people ask you, well, what is Toastmasters about? That's your brand manual. It's on toastmasters.org. And it also contains, I think, a 3-minute and a 5-minute pitch as well.
Valerie, this is Paul Richard. I'm having a real problem with all of this electronic stuff. I thought this was supposed to be about friend making and conversations about what we do. And to go through all of these electronic stuff is just going to turn people off in my mind. If you can talk someone into visiting you, whether on Zoom or in person, that's the difference. And all these rules are just like, whoa, what am I going to do about that?
Is your question, how do you get acclimated to electronic? Because everyone had to be electronic over the past couple of months. Is that your question?
You know, my question is that this is about, should be about, in my mind, friend making relative to Toastmasters purpose. And that's the elevator pitch that you spoke about, rather than a solicitation rule thing.
Okay, well, that is a matter of your own state of mind, isn't it? Because in
Yes.
my opinion, when it comes to electronic options, it's really based on what you think about electronics. If our goal or mission of Toastmasters is this environment that we want to help people to improve communication and leadership, that's certainly open. You can invite someone to a Zoom meeting and it's still about friend making. You can still use an electronic application and still encourage people to come to a meeting, whether it's face-to-face or not. So it's really about your mindset. If you want your club to remain with this manual, let me fill out the form, meet you on Main Street to pick it up, that's a personal preference. What I'm encouraging you is to step into today. The pandemic has already shown us that change is necessary. If you want to grow your club and remain in today, you may want to refocus what you feel about electronic options. That's all that I'm saying. I think if you want to stay and meet people on the street or coming into your meeting, that's a personal preference. But there's a different way. And unfortunately, we learned through this pandemic what that way was. That's why I asked about free toast host. When people are members, I often found when I founded TLC Toastmasters Ivy Tech, I was repeating the same thing over and over and over and over again. Wisdom dictated, create a spot where everyone can go when they have this question. We now have 9 folders in our free toast host. Anytime you sign up, you click the folder and you read the material. For someone who says, I'm not doing that, that's a personal preference. But just think about it. Pathways is electronic. Yes, you can get a manual for that, but Pathways has been pitched as an online continuing educational program. I hope that answers your question.
So Valerie, can I interject here for a minute?
Sure.
So Paul, if I'm hearing right, I think that there's 2 different parts to this. A lot of what Valerie is talking about is how do you get in touch and how do you stay in touch when we don't have that physical contact with somebody? I think what you're asking about is how do we form the relationships that we used to be able to form when we sat beside somebody and had coffee with them, now that they're having coffee in their house and we're having coffee in our house. Is that kind of what the question you were going towards, is how do you build that relationship once you get them onto the Zoom meeting? Am I hearing that right? You're going to shake or nod, either way.
Scott, thank you for that. I'm trying to maintain a personal relationship
Gotcha.
that is beyond pushing keys on a keypad.
Gotcha.
Now, it used to be, of course, you sit down and you would have the coffee and you'd say who this is about. But now, as a membership person, you can contact people that you think might be interested and take them through the steps. We've had very good success just by personal contacts. And now our club is all over the country.
Yep.
And that's the good thing about the electronic stuff. Now, what happens after they go away, I want to think about how we maintain those relationships that we now have when we get back to sitting around a table. How do we still engage those people who are distant? That's a big question to me.
That's a good question. And what your question is about hybrid. That's a hybrid club. We have 5 states represented in our particular club. Prior to the pandemic, we had 3 states represented. The person who originally joined us was from Atlanta. She is still with us today. So she was pre-pandemic. She's now with us during the pandemic. And as long as she stays with us, she'll be with us after. So what I'm trying to say is the fact that someone is on Zoom, WebEx, Skype, whatever it might be, it's a frame of reference. You can be just as engaged online when we get back to face as you are when you were there before. That's a hybrid question.
Thank you,
rather
Val.
than think that everyone has this take on, I'm not sure if that's what we want, ask the members of your club. You can ask the leaders. If your club is hybrid, you may want to maintain that. If it's not, maybe you want to suggest that. That might be a way to do it. But to me, hybrid, and for those who are wondering, prior to the pandemic, I started with Big Blue Button. That was one of the first online options for people to communicate. And when I used Big Blue Button, most people resisted it. I was at Ivy Tech at the time, still doing adjunct faculty work. And for years, people resisted it. And I remember my mentor informed me, Valerie, you may not know this right now, but I'm telling you, online is the future. And this was over 10 years ago. I became an expert at these online opportunities and how to connect people. That's why in clubs, how do you make your meeting unique? If you went to one of the district trainings, I talked about Kahoot. Kahoot might be an option. What about Mentimeter? Look for opportunities to engage everyone. Some people may have a paid subscription for Zoom, but what about those who don't? How are you doing polls? Do you do polls through the chat box? That's another way to keep people engaged. When you get back in the room and then you maintain individuals online, keep that option. If you can do the chat, ask everyone that's in the room to log in and put their information in the chat to vote for best of the best. That's a way to do it. But I think it's just about reframing. And just because that's one person's way, that may be that person, but that's not the only way or the right way for everyone. All I'm saying is, if you want to be now, right now, you must embrace this online option, guys. That's all that I'm saying. It doesn't have to be full force to tear down the building to make it happen. All I'm saying is, whatever is unique about your club, take some of these opportunities and think about it. How can you tweak it? So even though you're that fingerprint, how can you make it work for you?
Thank you, Valerie. That fills in a few blanks for me.
So, Paul, I've been hybrid since I moved to Indiana at the end of 2018. I stayed in a couple of my clubs in Orlando because I was friends with them. Those are my original Toastmasters family. I didn't want to just walk away from them.
Correct.
We do some stuff outside of Toastmasters as well. We have happy hours where everybody brings their own beverages and we get back on a Zoom call and we have happy hour. Now, we can't have happy hour that we can't share drinks. That's kind of weird. We're in different states, but we still get together and socialize like that. Every once in a while, we'll get together and have a wine tasting, or we will. I notice alcohol comes into this a lot. We've had dessert nights, so we've had food nights that have been part of it. We've also, as a club, have all cooked together. We all got on Zoom and we all made the same stuff for dinner in our kitchens, and we kind of showed how we did that. So kind of those same touch points that you would have if you were with somebody, you can do some of this stuff virtually. It just takes a little bit of creativity to how you get those folks to come in. But the one thing that we do with everybody that comes into those clubs that we didn't know originally, everybody is a buddy. So not a mentor, but a buddy. Because there's a lot of stuff that we do within Toastmasters that is not normal. Like we clap incessantly for stuff that nobody would normally clap for.
Yeah.
If you fall down in the middle of your speech, we're going to clap for you and be like, way to stick the landing. So
Scott, thank you for that. I think that personalizes it for me much more than some of the got to fill this in, got to fill that in stuff. I think that's wonderful.
Because you probably give people buddies before. Like you had somebody you hooked them up with that you became friends with them. Give them somebody that they're contact to. So there's a phone call that happens every once in a while. If it's somebody in the same city, there's some reference points or somebody that you can, something that they have in common. Like they both like the Steelers, or I don't know, they both play softball, or they both go running, or they both like to cook, or all those sorts of things. Whatever they might be, find somebody who likes the same stuff. Build those friendships that way. You just have to find a new way to connect, but the same stuff happens. Does that help you a little bit, buddy?
Yes, it certainly does, Scott. Thank you.
Good. Sorry, Valerie.
That's fine. And I want to make sure that everyone is clear. This training is personalized for your role as VPM. Okay, and that's what I wanted to focus on. I love the fact that Paul brought that up, and thanks, Scott, for that feedback. Whatever you want to do is still going to have to start with your frame of mind. What is your frame of mind? Make sure you have some positive thoughts about the way we are now having to communicate. Otherwise, it's going to spill over. We also every Wednesday get together as a club. We do Zoom practice meetings for anyone that is a member. It's anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, and we come and share our concerns, and we actually do strategies to do for us to be better at Zoom. And that's basically every single week. So that's another thing. Any other questions? Someone asked about, has anyone heard of Zoom, WebEx? Those are the ones that I had brought up. Yes, I've heard of those. Those are options for you to use. Zoom is an option. I know that was offered by the district, but you could use any sort of online opportunity for you when it comes to opening your meeting up. But when you use the resources, and the gentleman mentioned, fill this out, fill that out, converts happen by filling out applications. I just gave you some opportunity to think about how you might do that. Okay. A lot of Paul's questions were also VPPR questions as well, because that's another way for a person to piggyback with you. It's a fine line with what those two officers do, isn't it? And there's another question here. Back up, they are not hearing you. Oh, were you guys able to hear me? Oh, I'm not sure. Someone said back up, they're not able to hear you.
I can hear, this is Paul, I can hear you.
Okay.
Christine says she has a question.
Yeah, it's not exactly, it is sort of a question. I understand what you're saying, Valerie, but, and I agree with you, but I just want to share something. I'm part of the over 60 crowd, and I'm no Luddite. I probably am on Zoom 3 hours a day, and I'm in all kind of organizations. I run 3 meetup groups. So I do that sort of stuff. But I think there's a difference between generations. And every time I hear the name of a new electronic thing, whether it's host or whatever, really it kind of makes me feel a little sick, like I want to go to bed. and I know it's the opposite for a lot of younger people. And so it's a real adaptation. So anyway, that's the part that I don't know, probably many Toastmasters members and many prospects find a little bit difficult and off-putting is that just to have the mental room to put one more thing to have to become familiar and learn. It's like learning another foreign language. It's just really tough. And so I find that a difficult aspect of the job.
Thank you for that comment, Christine. In the 5 minutes that I have left, I just want to say to everyone, Christine's comment is real. I mean, this is what we're having to deal with. If someone, let's say in their 80s, was now told to get on a Zoom call to just connect with their grandchildren, that was a frightening experience for them. Now imagine us as Toastmasters doing conversions and asking people, okay, log on. They're thinking, log what? A log? What do you mean log? Some people don't even want to use a cell phone, but they are realizing it's how I perceived everything. I think in closing, I just want to say to you, this training was set up to give you options. If you want to stay where you are, go for it. If you're interested in learning more, try something new. I understand it comes with the advantages and disadvantages. When it comes to conversions, you have to have a system, guys. Toastmasters will sell itself, but you have to put it out there. And when they come, how will you convert? That's what this talk was about. I hope it has been helpful for you. And I understand the concerns that you have. And when you get back into your own personal meeting space and it's face to face, if you want to let things go, fine. Some people may not. But if you have converted members that are from other states, are you going to just lose them? So in some way, embrace an opportunity. Scott, I'll turn it back over to you.
Valerie, thank you so very much. Everybody, give it up for Valerie. That was absolutely fantastic. A lot of wonderful, wonderful information out there. Very, very nice job. Very well done, Valerie. Thank you so very much. So I have a couple questions for everybody. A couple of things that came up that we touched on a little bit, but didn't necessarily get really deeply into. Big question. Do all of you know that the district has meetup accounts that every club can use? If there's a meetup out there district-wide for everybody, who knows that? That is a lot of non-raising of hands. Very cool. I texted Dave while we were doing this, and I'm going to see if we can get something out to everybody so that you understand how the district meetup stuff works, how you can get on that and use the district. So you as a club don't have to pay for other stuff because nobody has money in clubs right now to be able to do stuff. So let's try to get that out there for everybody. I think that would be very nice. What other questions do you have? What other questions do you have about VPM, about Toastmasters stuff, whatever it is? We have a couple minutes left. We'd love to answer any other questions that y'all might have out there. Christine.
I just want to say that Meetup is a terrific source of new members. You really find people that way. I personally have set up a Meetup page myself for our Toastmasters Club, but just reinforcing what you're saying, Scott, about Meetup.
Very cool. Denise, my friend.
Hi, Scott. Good evening. I wanted to address the 60 plus. I'm in the 65 plus club, and I happen to belong to Valerie's club, and I was very resistant. I am going to tell you, I was kicking and screaming. Yet, we plugged along. Of course, there were some snafus with me because I'm not on the computer all the time. I'm retired, so that's just something that I don't do. However, we persevered, and I would take nothing for clicking buttons now. When we have to do the polls, we click a button. When we have to pay our dues, we're clicking a button. So it is a mindset, and oftentimes we are afraid of the unknown. But I would challenge you to go out and see what it is first before you say, oh, no, I'm 65 and I can't do it. I still say it sometimes, but it's an excuse sometimes, but it works. We are older, but
experience. Just experience.
Yeah, seasoned, but don't limit yourself to what has been in the past, because sometimes you can't grow if you stay there. I'm learning that I have, even with the Zoom, we have been online ever since our inception, so it wasn't new for us. But what I'm finding is, because we have been on Zoom, we are a hybrid club. When I go to other Zoom sessions and they're totally new, I can say, well, do this, do that, because I have the experience. So it's don't limit yourself. You know, whatever works well for your club, but don't let your age stop you from doing and challenging yourself to do things differently, because at least you can find out whether it works for you. It may or it may not, but don't stop yourself from going forward into the 21st century. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. So I'll leave you with one last thought here. Toastmasters is very much a relationship-built organization. We are all about the connection and how can we help somebody else become a little bit better version of themselves tomorrow than what they were yesterday. It's all about the personal touch, that personal connection. Consistency really matters. There is, without a doubt, when you start to see the same faces on a regular basis, when you start to have consistency with who comes to your meetings, with who speaks at your meetings, with who does roles, when you start to see the same faces over and over, it becomes easier. You start to have that fear of, well, they're just in their own place and I'm in my own place and we're disconnected. A lot of this starts to wash away. There's a reason why we've been doing trainings like this almost every week for a year. And the reason for that is we wanted to build relationships. We wanted this to be the start of a community. The more that you can build consistency and a community feel between you and your members and your guests, the more that it's going to feel normal. And I think right now, everybody just wants stuff to feel normal again. We forget what that was like. So the more that you can be consistent, the easier time you're going to have. So one more time tonight, give it up for Valerie with an absolutely fantastic presentation. Thank you so very much. I see, Valerie, that you put your contact information into the chat feature. If you save your chat features, you'll be able to have that information. So please do so. I am going to hit stop recording here.